You've landed yet again on Planet 412. I'm your captain of sorts, Matt Ensch. A very good guest today. We have Brian Seech, who is very well known in the cryptid world and paranormal studies. I've lost count of all the different documentaries that I've seen him and his wife Tammy on. And he's going to come on today and talk to us about some of the things that they're doing, what's coming up, and his thoughts on things. So we're going to bring Brian in right now. And thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Now, a lot of people are going to recognize you. Possibly some might not. So, what I wanted to do, I wanted to turn the mic over to you and just introduce yourself. Maybe give a quick little bio of where you grew up and how you got into this fine little corner of the strange world that we live in.
How do you say it? This the paranormal field, I guess. Well, I was always interested in uh, UFOs, Bigfoot, and things like that growing up. And I grew up in the '70s, so we would watch, or I would watch things like In Search of, and all the documentaries at the time, Boggy Creek, and I was always been interested in it. When I met my wife Terry, um, found out she was interested in all that also. So when we got married in 1986. We got married in '85. I know she's over there saying '85. Yes, we got married in '85. Well, we started our first group in 1986. It was called Q, Center for Unexplained Events, and we used that basically for a forum for all of the unexplained, whether it be UFOs, ghosts, Bigfoot. Later on in 2012, we I decided, we both decided to uh, bring another group. Was called CCS, Center for Cryptozoological Studies. It was a group that we specifically research all kind of different cryptids from. So here we are now, some 30 plus years later, and still researching the unknown. 2.5 years ago, we moved down into a holler outside of Weirton, West Virginia. And if people don't know where that is, it's in the northern panhandle. It is right between Ohio and Pennsylvania. We like to tell people we live, if you see it, we live on the tip of the middle finger of West Virginia.
Speaking of West Virginia, so much high strangeness specifically goes through that state. I'm sure you've done a lot of researching there. What stands out to you in West Virginia? Why it's so paranormal, supernatural?
Well, yeah, we've been researching this area, basically Hancock County, where we lived. We researched this area before we even moved down here several times, along with our friend Fred Saluga, who's still down here. Uh, West Virginia, it's a huge state. There's all kind of different like you mentioned about ghosts. We have a lot of headless ghosts here, believe it or not, in West Virginia. That was one thing that we found out that was interesting. A lot of strange creature sightings. We have of course, the Mothman, which is the state cryptid down here. Bigfoot sightings. We've had the Grafton Monster. Boy, there's other ones: Goat Man, Sheep Squatch. You pretty much have everything here in West Virginia. A lot of the people don't really want to talk that much down here. We are starting to make headway here.
Um, you mentioned a couple things that stand out to me. Obviously you have the Mothman. You have other things that have gone there. Which one, if you were to pick one, now obviously that's one of the most famous for you, which high strangeness slash cryptid event stands out the most to you for that state?
Oh, it's definitely the Mothman. Between 1966 to 1967, over 100 eyewitnesses saw this strange humanoid type creature. It would it could fly next to cars at 100 miles an hour. It showed up in the TNT area in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Every year they have a huge conference down there. I've spoken there a couple times already. It's just that they shut the town down and have it to the whole town. They get 10, 15, 20,000 people there. So it's definitely the Mothman that it was seen, and unfortunately, the tragic events of the Silver Bridge collapsing. I think it was more of a coincidence than just this creature being there and that was foretelling doom and things like that. But again, do I know for sure now?
And then across the bridge there, you have obviously my state, Ohio. One of, if not, the most supernatural, paranormal, cryptid, frequented states in the country. There's really something about Ohio. You hear about it all the time. What stands out to you about Ohio, in terms of high strange?
Ohio, it would definitely be Bigfoot, just like PA. Difference between Ohio and PA is Ohio, you probably have double of the Bigfoot researchers that PA has. Um, Ohio is more flat, except in the eastern part. Uh, so as far as other sightings in Ohio, you do have like the melon heads. I'm trying to think of some other ones. You have the lake monster, Bessie, which we also have it in PA up in Lake Erie. So Ohio is also very strange. A lot of UFO reports do come from Ohio. We researched Ohio a little bit, which is Columbiana County, Beaver Creek State Park. There's been a lot of Bigfoot sightings there, and of
I'm going
course,
to be back in for that one. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, and of course, Salt Fork State Park, right? I mean, it's the
Mhm.
biggest, one of the biggest Bigfoot conferences in the United States, and they get thousands of people there.
And you have Hawking Hills as well.
Yes,
Um, you know, I jumped in when you mentioned Beaver Creek because I live in Youngstown. That is Columbiana County. It's in East Liverpool, which is like 40 minutes from Youngstown.
yeah.
And I actually had an experience myself there
Oh,
about a
did you?
year ago, last spring. I did not know all of the different things that have been going on there, all of the Bigfoot type events that have gone on there. Dr. Russ Jones and his partner Brad on their show, they've had a bunch of Bigfoot situations there, from rock throwing to bluff charges. Dr. Jones' partner Brad has a 45-minute long audio recording of very similar sounds to the Sierra sounds that Mr. Ron Moorhead had recorded all those years ago. It was really interesting. I actually was on their show as a guest, and he played about a minute and a half of some of the audio that they recorded there, and it was very similar to the Sierra sounds. There's a lot of dogman sightings in Ohio
Yes,
as well.
yes.
Do you know Rich McCandlish, Brian?
No, no.
Okay. Rich is another researcher. He focuses on southern Ohio. And down in the Hawking Hills area, there's a lot
Okay.
of Bigfoot and dogman type events. What's your thoughts on dogman right
One of the we have researched Dogman since 2007. We've received, oh geez, maybe I'm trying to think, is maybe 14 or 15 sightings from Ohio to PA, from Ohio and PA. Uh, some people think that the Dogman is just a misidentified, possibly a Bigfoot, or maybe it's a species of Bigfoot. I just believe, you know, Dogman is more canid, um, hence Dogman, right? But and Bigfoot's more ape-like. If you look at drawings of both of them, you see a distinct difference. I cannot explain for the life of me what these Dogmen are. I do believe that they are being seen. Like I said, we've talked to eyewitnesses who've seen them. I just when we started to research just the Dogman, we were like, you know, I read Linda Godfrey's book, Hunting the American Werewolf, and we used to live in Mercer County too for 3 years, Mercer County, PA. And they had something up there called the Shenango Valley Werewolf, and we heard nothing about it when we were up there. So uh, again, it does seem to be some kind of canid thing. Maybe that is some kind of an interdimensional creature that it pops in and out in certain areas and then it's gone. I don't believe it's a werewolf per se, like a person can change into a werewolf. I don't believe that. But we do take the Dogman report seriously, and we're actually hopefully here in April or May are going to go up to a place called Parker up in Butler County, and
now?
we're
Okay.
going to which you probably know, it's not probably that far from where you are. There was a we were contacted by a gentleman who actually himself and at least 4 other witnesses. So that would make about 5 eyewitnesses who saw one of these dogman creatures 3 or 4 years ago around the campfire, and they all saw it. And it was basically sitting by they had like a food bin there, and they were throwing scraps of food and corn and things like that. Not to attract the dogman, just that's where they put some of their things. And they said this dogman was actually sitting there, like sitting over top of it. And it actually gave them like a menacing look, like kind of like, hey, what are you looking at? And grabbed this barrel and just like ran into the woods. And they found it the next morning, and most of the food was gone from it. So we're looking forward to talking. That we've never had one of these eyewitness sightings with more than 2 people. So that's going to be very exciting to talk to these people.
What is your thought, when you mentioned the dog man and you mentioned, some of the woo, you mentioned, well, I'm saying woo, you said you don't know if they're able to maybe go through into other dimensions or anything like that. That's what a lot of people say the woo is when we touch on these cryptids. And there's a lot of it,
Yeah.
Do you believe that these creatures are only natural, or are you along the lines of I can fully believe that they could be interdimensional beings?
Are we just talking dogman or any of the cryptids?
In general, just any cryptids in general.
Generally, yeah, I do believe that a lot of these cryptids could be, especially if you take some of the other one-off cryptids, like the Grafton monster, Flatwoods monster, right?
Mhm.
They're seen for a short period of time, then they're gone, or they're seen in an area and then they're gone. So where do they go? My friend Fred always says, "Where do they come from? Where do they go?" So, I mean, again, it's not as a quote unquote, cryptozoologist, right? Um,
Mhm.
we're supposed to actually, when we do research these creatures as their flesh and blood, but boy, there's just so many questions. It's like we should have a lot more proof on a lot more of these creatures. I know, like in the forest and things, it's very hard to find prints because of the leaf litter. It compresses, it decompresses pretty quick. So you're looking for muddy areas to try to get prints. So you're not going to find a lot of actual physical proof of a lot of these things. But we go a lot by what eyewitness testimony. And again, a lot of people say, well, that's, eyewitness testimony isn't good, but eyewitness testimony also puts people in jail on the electric chair. So a lot of the older that aren't cryptids now, like the mountain gorilla, the platypus, the Komodo dragon, they were once considered, creatures fantasy. There's no way they're real, but they started out by, you had people going in like, hey, I saw this huge lizard this huge lizard. It was, huge. And nah, what are you talking about? A dragon? It's like, well, it ended up being a Komodo dragon. So same with the mountain gorilla. So you do get these. This is how a lot of the older, that are not, they're not cryptids now, but they used to be cryptids. Now, they were proven to be real. So will Bigfoot or some of these others you know, ever be captured or caught or found a dead body? I don't know. I hope so. I mean, we don't want to kill them. We don't go after. We're not out to kill any of these things. Maybe you can find some, maybe a dead body somewhere, and that could prove it. So
Well, what is your personal thoughts on when you're dealing with, Sasquatch or Sabe? The thought is the majority of them travel in family packs, in units. So, they're obviously not dumb animals. There's thinking going on. They're actively avoiding human beings. They're actively avoiding trail cams, which I always, I don't know your thought on it. If a deer can see infrared light on a
yeah,
trail cam, I would say they can too.
yeah.
There's not any pictures really out there of them on it. Um, Taking that into account, do you think, I mean, it's possible that they purposely remove their dead, they bury them, or maybe staying underground? That's why we don't see them.
Yeah, I mean, both have been said to, yeah, they bury their dead, or they're very careful. Or like an elephant, elephants would go to a certain place and then die. Uh, it makes sense. As far as the family units too, it's another thing that's been brought up. We've only had one out of all the times that we've ever researched or gotten a report. We've only gotten one report of a family unit, and that was in Ohio. And I'm trying. It escapes me now which county in Ohio, but a gentleman saw one creature along a ridge, and then two other ones had followed. One was a smaller one, so possibly it was a female and a juvenile. But I do think there's a lot of reports out there that there are uh, family units of them being seen.
Agreed. And, see what I mean when I start talking that comes in. It goes away, though. I'll edit those out. Um, there's another area in Ohio that people don't really talk about very much. It's in the Cleveland area, the Cuyahoga Valley,
Yes.
which is a very well traveled area, supposedly for Sasquatch and dogmen. And I have a friend of mine, David Wolf, who has a channel called Exposing the Strange, ETS. He does documentaries and such, and he frequents the Cuyahoga National Park and all of that up there. And that's kind of a hidden gem up there. That's definitely an area for people to go if you want to research those things.
Yeah, one of the first dogman reports we had was in the metro parks up there, and we had a Jody Cook. It's a well-known sighting from Jody Cook, and we went up there, and we had it was about 1 a.m, and a woman was driving down the road, and she said she wasn't inebriated or anything, and she said this creature crossed from left to right, and she said it looked like the creature from American Werewolf in London, if you remember that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And she said it almost looked like it was morphing or changing because there were splotches of skin and then hair and then splotches of skin. And ironically, it ran right towards a power substation. Now, in subsequent reports here in PA, these creatures ran near or very close to a power substation. So again, here's something that, let's say that these creatures are interdimensional. Do they need to be close to a power source or something that could maybe cause a rift or something in a time space dimension? And could these things go through? Again, I'm not saying that they do or they are, but it is a theory. When you've received a couple, probably about 3 reports that these creatures were either near or very 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 close to a power substation.
That is extremely interesting. I've heard all the time as well. A lot of times dogmen are seen or Sasquatch by cemeteries or Indian burial
Crossroads,
grounds.
water, yes.
And water, yes, thank you. I want to stay on the subject of these specific beings, and you look at the missing 411, for instance. All
Mhm.
these people disappearing in our national parks, and there's been quite a bit of undertone speaking, and it's getting louder of late, that some of these, or even a good portion of them, could be disappearing because of dogmen, Sasquatch.
Bigfoot,
What
yeah.
are your thoughts on that?
Or or are they somehow going through some of these interdimensional portals? A lot of the people, some of that are found dead, it almost as if they were dropped. And I know you heard this too because you probably read all the books, that they're dropped, some bones are broken and things like that. Bigfoot, who knows? Dogman. Some people said underground military bases that we're taking them, we're taking the people for some reason. I don't know, but just that there's a definite. I think I don't want to say definite. There may be a correlation between some of these creatures and the missing. Again, UFO activity. He's also mentioned UFO activity.
Mhm.
So even strange birds, thunderbirds, huge birds, things like that, picking some of these people up and depositing them. I don't think anybody really knows the answer, but or if he knows the answer for sure, he's not saying 100%.
There's definitely some that I think, obviously work for the government, have quite a bit more information that they could let out if they wanted to, but don't. Hearing how your witness had seen American Werewolf in London, basically with splotches of skin. My mind immediately, flipped over, the other part of the country and the Utah area, Skinwalker Ranch. What are your thoughts on skinwalkers? And that goes back generations and generations of American Indians, and definitely could be where possibly the werewolf, thought of a man turning into a beast like that comes from. What are your thoughts on that, Brian?
Yeah, well, the Native Americans, especially your shamans, they believe that people can turn into different creatures, whether they be wolves or things like that. We actually had someone. We were at a Ohio Bigfoot meeting. It was Doug Waller's actual Bigfoot meeting, and this was years ago. And there was a gentleman there. I had started to talk to my one friend about, dogmen and werewolves. And this gentleman there he says, you know what? He says, believe me or don't believe me, he saw his grandfather in the woods of, I guess, southern Ohio, claims that he actually saw his grandfather turn into one of these werewolves. And when he told me, he saw the look on my face, and he says, I can tell that you don't believe me. And he says, I have nothing to hide. I'm just telling you what I saw. And now again, with some of that too, maybe, and it's been brought up, maybe these people aren't physically changing into werewolves. Maybe they can somehow, and it sounds crazy, maybe project onto you that they are changing. They're actually physically not changing, but somehow they're using their mind. They can project on you that they are changing into a werewolf or a skinwalker. Or
I love that mindset. It makes me think of a young lady who was in the Wisconsin area by the Beast of Bray Road. Right in that area, she had gone to a summer camp. I believe this was in the late 70s. She was a teenager, noticed a dog man across a riverway. And when night came, she by herself, which I didn't think was very smart, went by herself to go see. When she got to the area, she said she didn't find a dog man, but what she did find was a very large red floating orb that was in the same exact area that she saw this thing. And she had actually even stepped on a branch, made a loud, break sound, and this thing stopped and kind of turned itself almost like a person would like look who's behind them. And it started a lot of conversation of, was that what she saw, and was it doing what you just said? I mean, it makes perfect sense. Shows something that would definitely cause you to scooch and get out of the area. I want to get into something. I've been thinking about this since you and I spoke, a couple weeks ago about doing this interview. You and your wife, and if she doesn't want to come on, I understand, but I would like to know for the both of you, what were the top two most crazy experiences that you guys have had in your careers?
okay, the top two, probably one of the top ones. It was at Salt Fork State Park. I'm still going to say that one. So it was during one of the conference weekends. So some of our members went to a place called the Handicap Shelter, which, a lot of people listening to this, if they know Salt Fork, they're going to know where it is. So we had about 4 or 5 members that were already there. So Terry and myself and Dave Rupert and Kerry Rupert came in their cars, and we got there. So we all got out simultaneously, Terry and I in our car, and Dave and Kerry. And all of a sudden, we all stopped at the same time. I mean, we barely walked out of the car a couple steps, and something hit us. Like it was a wave of something. Something was there, and something did not want us there. You felt an extreme presence, as if something was like just staring at you right in the wood line. So we went back to where everybody else was at the shelter. And as soon as we got there, they all said, when we got there, they said, something's off. We didn't even say anything to them. They said, something's off. Something's not right. It's almost as if there is something out there. So Dave and I went back to our cars, and we got out we had night vision and we had a parabolic mic, and we walked up and down the road. We didn't see anything, we didn't hear anything, but man, it felt like there was something there. I mean, very, very intense. Like it hit you like a wave. So people talk about getting zapped for infrasound. That's how intense it was. So this happened for about 20 some minutes. And then all at once, and we always say that it was almost like a light switch. Like a light switch, uh, it went off. And the woods seemed to come back to normal. And then all of a sudden, boom, nothing. You felt comfortable. I mean, you even heard a little bit of noises in the woods. So, uh, was there something there? Okay, we can't say for 100% because we didn't see anything or hear anything. But man, if I was a betting man, I'm saying that there was something there, and it didn't want us there, and we all felt it. And there was probably about 7 or 8 people there, and we all felt the same thing. And when it was over, it was over. It didn't come back. We stayed there another maybe hour or something, and nothing. So, and probably the second one would be down at Beaver Creek when we were walking by Hambleton's Mill. You know where that is, right? That trail by Hambleton's Mill. And it was me, Terry, Dave, and Kerry Rupert. And we had a rock that came from that hillside there. And hitting that little pond there, there's that little pond area. So me and Dave ran up as quick as we could to try to run up that hill into the woods, and we didn't see anything. But Carrie actually saw because I think she was the last one. She saw the rock, and we all looked, and we saw the ripples where the rock hit. And we also heard another instance, 2012. We heard the Ohio howl. Now you've heard the Ohio howl, I'm sure. We were actually, Terry and I were actually on that property. We know the gentleman property where that was taken. And that's from Matt Moneymaker took the Ohio howl, was in Wellsville, Ohio, not that far from Beaver Creek State Park. And a lot of people don't know that there was actually a video of that the gentleman put out he had a infrared light, and then he had like a little bait bucket. And I think he had bananas in it, I believe. And the video shows a tree, and it shows the bait, and it shows this head. It looked like a head, and it came out, and it was white for the infrared light, and it looked like it was sniffing the air. First you see the hand, and it's white, and then you see the face, the side of the face, and it looked like it's going like this, like it's sniffing, and then all of a sudden it just stealthily, very stealthily went back into the woods, and you didn't see it. The movements of this thing are what people have said that these creatures do, very slowly, stealthily, moving in and out, checking out an area, and then just moving back. And it was very, very impressive. Very impressive. Not many people have seen that. Video.
I did not know personally that existed. So
Yes.
that being one of the most famous audio clips of a Sasquatch
Yes.
history, for
and
sure.
We heard that in 2012 at Salt Fork when we were at the campground, the family campground. We heard it coming down from the it was in the hollow in the village. So very distinct, maybe about 20-25 seconds. And we were just getting ready to go to bed, and we did. It was probably, I think, 1:30, Terry, 2 o'clock, something like that. Yeah, 2 o'clock in the morning. And we were beat from, we had like it was a Halloween night at the campground, and we took part in it. We gave presentations. We took the kids through the woods, and so it was a fun night. But that really, we all woke, we all like, wow, did you hear that? We were all too tired. We're like, we're going to bed. We only heard it once, 20 seconds. It was about 20 seconds, it was gone.
And you did go right to bed after you heard that?
Yeah, the next night, interesting, we tell the story. The next morning, we drove down, and there's an overlook there that you can go look at. So we went there, and we go to get out of our cars, and a lady came, and she says, "You didn't happen to see a dog running around here, did you?" And then we said, "No." She said, "Well, my dog got loose last night. We've had it for a couple years, and I don't know what happened. Maybe, it broke its leash and it ran away." So we got the lady's number. We end up calling her back. It was about a week and a half later, and the dog did come back, I think a day afterwards. But so was that dog spooked? Did that dog hear that howl, and it got spooked, and it broke its chain? I don't know. It was kind of, you don't want to put two and two together, but boy, it was pretty odd.
That is, and you know what? I being a dog person myself, you saying that, I'm like, oh, good, good, because I think of my animals, and I would flip out if we lost one of them.
Yeah.
So, if you could pick anywhere, and you can ask her off camera, I'd like to know her answer to this. Each of you, if you could pick one place on the planet that you've never been to go research, what would it be for each of
Are you thinking about that? We always wanted, I know that I always wanted to go to Sedona, to the energy centers and research like some of the energy centers and Roswell, both of those. So what about you? She's thinking. Give her a minute.
you? Sorry to put the pressure
she
on you.
she said Washington State. Okay, where else? Or she said Roswell and Sedona. She said.
I've never been to Roswell, so that's definitely somewhere.
You've been to Sedona or no?
No, I have not. So you definitely mentioned two places that are high on my list
Yeah.
as well. Um, Speaking to everybody that is going to see these videos, can you let everybody know, where they can find you guys, where you're going to be? Again, I want you to mention the conferences that are coming up. Are you working on any documentaries right now? Is anybody going to expect to see you on TV soon? And if you could just let everyone know a few of your work, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, we we filmed for Terry and I filmed, and some of our friends also, like Fred. I think Dave and Carrie were in it. We filmed for a documentary that's coming out. That's going to come out on YouTube. I'm hoping in a couple months. And we did this. We're going to be we did this maybe 7, 8 years ago. Huh, Terry? It's been a while, and we're going to look a lot younger then too. So just saying, it's called it's a paranormal life, and our friend Patricia Coleman made this, and we're looking forward to that coming out. As far as anything else that's definite right now about us, that's probably for. We may be doing something else, which I don't want to say it until it happens. If it does happen, then I'll talk more about that. But we do have a couple conferences coming up. We co-sponsor our group Q co-sponsors the Butler Paranormal Conference, and this I think is the 16th year, I believe. A 16th year, I think, 15th or 16th. And Terry and I are going to be speaking at that. That's in Lindora, Butler County, PA, on April 27th, and then ours will be on May 4th. That will be at the Brook County Playhouse at Brook Hills Park in Brook County, West Virginia.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And there's one I kind of mentioned it, but let it go about experience I had at Beaver Creek. They have a conference the last couple of years. They'll have it this year as well. It's at the beginning of the spring. I don't know the exact date, but it's Friends of Beaver Creek State Park Bigfoot Conference. And friend of mine that's from Southern Ohio, his name's Ernie Davio, has had an incredible Bigfoot experience years ago. I met him there the night before this conference for the first time, and he said, "Hey," and we went to dinner, him and his wife and I, and he said, "We're going to go back to this campsite where everybody that's speaking at this conference is going to be. You want to come back and meet everybody?" I went. I never met anyone, and long story short, you could see the video. It's my second video on Planet 412 on YouTube. But what happened was I was told by a gentleman by the name of Johnny Freeman. He's a known psychic on Facebook, and he just came up to me. Never met me in my life. Told me I have to go up to the top of this trail where supposedly a portal is there, and that Bigfoot utilized this, and they're seen up at the top of this trail. And of course, I was okay, so why me? Why do I need to go up there? He said, I'm just getting a feeling. So I went up there and I sat there for half an hour and I didn't see anything, didn't hear anything. Right before I was getting ready to leave, it got really quiet and I did an EVP with my phone. I figured, why not? I've seen all these ghost shows. And I actually have a recording. Ron Moorhead himself has said it sounds like a Sasquatch to him. In fact, I'll play it if you want to hear it, Brian.
Oh, yes, I do.
It was enhanced by Brian Brock and Todd Erie of the Cryptid Creatures is the name of their show, and they enhanced it for me because it was quieter. So give me 1 second here. I'll get that
Sure.
for you. Again, the beauty of editing. They won't know I was looking for this. All right, where are we? I apologize. It's coming. I just played it on another show. Give me 1 more second.
Sure, take your time.
Here it is. Is there anyone out here with me? Thank you for allowing me to be in your home, in your woods. You want to say anything to tell me you're here? What's your name? Is there anyone here, and how many of you are there? Just to let you know, did you hear the grunt at the beginning, Brian?
It was really really
I
hard.
want you to hear. I want you to hear this grunt. I'm going to play just that part back for you. Is there anyone out here with me? Thank you for allowing me to be in your home, in your woods.
Oh, okay.
You catch that?
Yeah.
So just to let you know, I heard none of that. The grunts, the two different sets of 4 wood knocks. I did not hear any of that with my own ears. So for me, I jumped up. I freaked out. I started, saying thank you and everything. If you go to Planet 412, and this is for anybody watching as well, if you haven't seen it, my second video I ever dropped is called "You Won't Believe What Happened at Beaver Creek State Park," and it's very detailed. I have pictures of everything I did, the trail I took, what happened, and I played that for a lot of people in the know. A lot of famous people. I know a bunch of the people that I've played it for, and when Mr. Moorhead made me play it not once, not twice, but 3 times, and then he looked at me and said, "You just may have something there, Matt." And I got excited. I said, "Do you?" Because it's not my voice. It's obviously not me.
Yeah.
I didn't put my hand down and grunt
Mm-hmm.
or anything. And that's exactly what I would imagine a grunt from one of those beings sounds like. I've never seen a Sasquatch, but he told me that in his opinion, that's what it sounded like. And to have his stamp was good. I just like to play that for anybody that's in research to just get everyone's thoughts on that. Is there anything, Brian? I apologize. Any books that you've written that we could mention, or if not,
We haven't written any books yet per se. We did put together how many? We call them we basically what we did is we made 9. We call them booklets. They're maybe what 10, 12 pages, and we wrote a little bit like on Bigfoot, UFOs, uh, mysterious Mercer County, strange tales of Beaver County, and uh, strange cryptids of Ohio. So what we did is we went into the files and just some of the files and things that were out there. We added them in there. Some of them we added some newspaper articles to the back of them. So we actually did 9 of them. And we just stopped producing them because it just really wasn't worth it. I mean, people bought them. The best one we ever did was Mysterious Mercer County, and a lot. Actually, we actually gave one of those to Linda Gottfried, and she actually included some of our research in one of her books, and she thanked us for that. So as far as any other book, we're starting to work on one now, and then hopefully have another one after that. So, but that's what we have at this moment.
Well, if there's any group out there that I could think of, a two-person team, you and your wife, that should be writing a book, it's you guys. So I look forward to it someday. Would there be a way if somebody tried to find these booklets that they could try and find them, or they're just nowhere to
We
be
only
found?
They were all just privately published by us, and we once in a while I took a picture of all of them, and once in a while it'll come up, and I'll say, these are the ones, and people want to buy them, and it's like it's not worth uh, the time and the effort. Now, we were told we should just take all that and just put it in the book form.
We may do an ebook or something.
We may do an ebook down there, but a lot of the sightings are still readily available on like in the internet, and some of the newspaper clippings you may not be able to, as far as copyright, you might
Right.
not be able to like reproduce. But one of the things that we do is we have what we call our S files upstairs, and we've been doing that since 1986. We've been collecting newspaper clippings, books. It actually has taken on a life of its own. When we talk about the S files, we've had a lot of longtime researchers come and look through these things. We actually had last one was Heather Moser from Small Town Monsters. She was actually here, and then also Seth came and he filmed us here at the house. If you saw Sasquatch Unearthed Mountain State Monsters, that's the S files upstairs that they filmed in, and he was impressed with the amount of stuff that we had, and it goes back like some 50s, 60s, because we've had gentlemen like Dr. Paul Johnson, who's one of our mentors, Jody Cook, even he gave us a lot of stuff. So there's a lot of old stuff that you can't find in our S files. Like whenever we would find newspaper articles from anywhere, we would cut them out and save them, and that's the bulk of it. The old magazines, Fate magazine, we have a lot of the old Fate magazines. So and we've helped a lot of researchers with their research from the S files. So it's kind of like taking on its own. I think people like the S files better than us. That's right.
Do you think maybe one day you might get all of those together, maybe put them in digital form so that it lasts and it doesn't, you don't lose any of that information?
Yeah, we thought once it's time to cross over, so to speak, we want. I mean, the books are books. You can get the books. Magazines, yeah, some of them are harder to get. The newsletters and the news clippings, there's a lot of stuff there that we somehow either, I don't know, if we hand them down or they go to a library or something, we or digitize them, and that would take a long time, I tell you. But it would be nice to get all of that, and so any researcher can like look through them.
I would be one that would buy it. So.
Yeah, and here's the thing that people like. A lot of the newer people in this field think that all of this stuff is readily available on the internet, and that is so not true. I bet you there's only 10% out there that's on there. One of my favorite things growing up when we were able to get them, it was called UFO News Clipping Service. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
Yeah.
Basically, I think it lasted over 20 years. What happened is it was about maybe 10 or 12 pages a month, and all it was people send them newspaper clippings about UFOs first, and then Fortania creatures and everything, and it would come in a monthly form all across the United States and the world too. So I think there was over 700 issues of that.
God, and you had every one of them.
Yeah, we might have 50 of them. I mean, because they were very, very expensive at the time. Even they were like $5 a month. So you're talking $60 a year, and that was even in the 80s and 90s. So that was a lot of money back then, just to get a newspaper clipping service. But it was well worth it. I mean, there's more stuff in there. If you had to put your money into something, and you really, especially UFOs, because there's more UFOs than other stuff. But if you're really interested in UFOs, newspaper clippings from across the country, it's almost a must if you can somehow get a hold of those.
That sounds like just absolute gems that you guys have, and guaranteed there's information that there's people walking around doing new research today haven't heard anything that's probably said in some of those. So that definitely needs to be passed on in some way. You mentioned Jody Cook a few times. I know Jody as well. Him and a kid named Kenny Thibodeau are doing a good job with the North American Dogman Project,
Mhm.
and really a lot of good information. Um, I actually had someone. Do you know Preston Dennett?
I know the name. I've never met him or talked to them yet.
I interviewed him earlier, and we spoke about a lot of high strangeness, different things. I didn't expect him to get into cryptozoology and some other things, but he did. One of the things he specialized in, though, is UFOs and USOs,
Yeah.
and it was extremely interesting. What are your thoughts on? I don't know if you've heard some of the new thinkings, if you will, on why planes and ships disappear in the Bermuda Triangle. There's a new thought out there that there are at different points around the world undersea alien bases that are basically ran by AI. And if something comes within too close of a distance, bam, and it's zapped and it's gone, which would explain why things disappear and no one ever finds anything. Apparently, according to this whistleblower, some of them move, and the countries are aware of where they're going to move, and they steer clear so that it doesn't happen. Something bad. What is your thoughts on the USOs? Our oceans? You always hear the comment, "We know less about our
Yes.
oceans than we do about space." What are your thoughts on
Well, yeah. There's certain points in the ocean we can't get to, or we can't go because of the compression. It'll crush what we have. So if aliens, do have that technology, which they probably do if they're, coming from, outer space, they would be able to go to something like the Marianas Trench and things like that. They'd be able to go down there. And um, as far your regular person can't get there. I know your governments can go so far with a submarine, but that's it. So, I mean, it would make sense. We've always heard about, inner Earth too. Maybe they're from inner Earth. The oceans would be probably number one where they would be, um, because again, how are you going to ever find them? So, I mean, it makes sense. I think.
You mentioned Inner Earth. I'm glad you did. One of the most famous stories of history is Admiral Byrd.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, and that's a situation. When I hear people, that's a bunch of hooey or that's bull. How are you going to tell me that one of the most highly decorated military men in history is going to lie about something like that, especially back then? It wasn't like today where a lot of people just want to get on TV or make a name for themselves. Unfortunately, there's a lot of cringeworthy, stories out there. I call them stories. I call real ones experiences. But your thoughts on that situation? I mean, you have one of the most highly decorated military men in history saying he found an inner Earth.
Yeah. No, you remember, right after the war, Operation High Jump, right? When so there's thousands of men and ships that went allegedly for a mapping project of the North Pole, right? So where allegedly there was, they thought maybe the Nazis were there, and or allegedly, there was a UFO base there. So what exactly happened? Why do you have all these men armed and a lot of these warships and things like that to do a mapping project? It didn't make sense.
And then sticking on Antarctica and these bases that there's so few people that are on these huge swaths of land. Not one country owns these spaces. Everybody does. What are your thoughts on why they will never allow? I don't even know how long it's been going on. No planes, jets, anything can fly over those frozen zones. Do you believe that there is a reasoning for that? That there's something we're not supposed to see there?
there's always a reasoning. Uh, if you're not allowed to go over or fly over, there's a reason. They're not just going to say don't fly over. So yeah, there's probably something there. To be honest with you, that they don't want anyone else to see. So it's simple as, come on, if they don't want you to be somewhere, they're not just going to make this stuff up. They don't want you. You're not allowed to fly over Area 51. I mean, so again, there's stuff there they don't want you to see.
Have you ever seen, now, of course, there's been a lot of people, because there's disinformation that's out there as well. There's supposed to be, it's real video from space of a hole at the top of the Earth where Admiral Byrd supposedly went in. If that were to be true, what would be your thoughts on, us as general public finding that out? How would you respond to that?
That's been a theory for years, since we first start reading into and getting into all of this stuff, that there was a hole at the pole. And hey, is it inner Earth? Is there a race? And then inner Earth again.
Hmm.
How would like a layman? How would you find that out? I mean, if how could you get a plane up there? They don't want you in those areas. So how could someone like me and you find out? We never would.
So, do you think that, in at least in our lifetimes, we won't see any broad, government opening up about things that have happened in terms of UFOs or UAPs, aliens, cryptids?
Well, especially about the UAP, because we've been trying to follow that pretty heavy, because that's in a very exciting time right now, actually. And
Hmm.
um, I've already said that, and I get kind of mocked for it. I think what you're already seeing is kind of like a soft disclosure, the way the government does things. It's like
I agree.
uh, they'll tell you, well, we're not going to tell you that it's aliens, but it could be, but maybe not. Well, we don't know, but they throw so many different things at you, so many different angles, that the truth is like hidden somewhere in the middle. You've heard of the old saying, it's hiding in plain sight. You've heard
Hmm.
about that. Um, so yeah, I think that there's just, wow, it's an exciting time, and eventually they're going to have to come up with some, because all these other governments across the world they're coming up with more and more. And so even when they did the report, they listed what these things could be. At the very bottom is other, the dreaded other bin. They'll say, well, we didn't say it was aliens, but we didn't say it wasn't,
Hmm.
in the dreaded other bin. So what is, uh, I think if you look hard enough and you can try to see through things, it's almost like they're letting it go slowly, one piece at a time, because they're still basing a lot, I think, on like what happened with the War of the Worlds, when they
Hmm.
thought it was the fake invasion. It
Yeah.
was a fake invasion, and how people reacted. This isn't the 30s.
No.
People have all their information. They have their cell phones. They have technology. You can get updates every 3 or 4 seconds about what's going on. So it'd be a lot harder to fake a lot of that. Now they say, well, you have AI now, and you have you could do great things with holograms and things like that. But eventually, we do think. I mean, maybe not in my lifetime, because I'm getting up there, right? But I do think eventually something will break, and I
I,
think it's
I,
starting to break right now. If you look at it, you piece it together, you pay attention. You pay attention to what they say. You pay attention to what they're not saying. I think there's a lot into that. I mean, you know, the government is very, very good at being masterful. At very good at being, uh, you know, you can change the tone of a sentence by one word.
hmm.
One word. You didn't read that sentence, buddy. It said, if or and. One word changes the whole tone of a sentence, and they live in. I always say that the government lives in the gray area, and no pun intended for the aliens. It's not.
Great.
It's not this. It's not this. It's this.
Hmm.
And I always do. I believe it is about the gray area. It's about that in between what they're telling you and what they're not telling you, and there lies the truth. Again, this is just me. I mean,
I agree with you 100% on so many things. I can't help but constantly go back to how close, at least the people living on this planet. I think there are multiverses. I think there are parallel universes, and there's something going on different on another Earth. Earth 103 or something, where Roswell, they kept it in the paper and they didn't change the paper. I keep going back to that, man. How amazing it would be for this planet and how far ahead technology was, because they always say the government has something that's about 100 years ahead of what the
yeah,
general public has. And if they would have just kept that the same way they did when they threw the first article in that paper back then, and didn't force that sheriff to hold that piece of foil. And I go back to as well Ronald Reagan's speech that he gave to the United Nations
yes,
that gets
yes,
swept under the rug, where he said, wouldn't it be something if we were basically attacked by, aliens? But I digress, or something he said along those lines. Aren't they already here?
yeah.
So, I mean, I found that mind blowing. You have the most powerful man in the world basically telling you, guys, I'm saying this without saying it. They're here. Is that the impression that you got, Brian?
Oh, exactly. And that was I remember that when it actually happened. I mean, I remember when he said that, and everybody who's in the field, they're like, you know what they're talking about? What was Star Wars?
Yeah.
It was, oh, it's about missiles and coming in. I'm like, it's also about what's coming to. I really believe that. Um, as far as like the interesting thing about when we collect old articles and things like that, in the late 80s, we have this picture of an invisibility suit. It was in the newspaper, and it was in a magazine. Actually, it might have been in Time, whatever. And it has this Japanese guy he has his arms out like this, and he has this suit, and you can actually see what's behind him. Now, just recently, maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, it came out again. Oh, we have this invisibility suit. It's like, guys, you had that in the 80s because you put it out there. I mean, you put it out there, or maybe it was 90s when it came, when we have the article or the gentleman with the suit. And now, we have an invisibility suit. It's like, that's old news now. I mean, it bends light somehow, and you can see, you can see what's behind you. So if they have that kind of technology and they're talking about it, are some of these UAPs, are they ours? I mean, now I'm not saying that they are. It would have
Not
to be
all.
this. It's either from planet Earth or it's from outside of the planet Earth. Now,
Agreed.
I do believe that there's some of these that, here's the thing, is the way the movements and what they can do with some of these craft. Is it anti-gravity? Is that how they're almost like, riding magnetic waves, things like that? Um,
Right.
did they purposely want to take these craft and match them up against our navy and just to see, or is it just could it be extraterrestrial? Maybe it's the answer right there is hiding in plain sight. Maybe it is extraterrestrial, because I do believe we have been visited and we are still being visited by extraterrestrials. And what it was, it seems like we're really close to World War III right now in so many
Hmm.
ways. So many ways. Just pay attention. You can't turn on the TV without it's either uh, China, Russia, North Korea, Iran. Pick them, pick one. It's like, pick one, pick anyone.
Yeah.
All it's going to take is one or two incidences, and boom. And I think we will be in World War III. So here's the thing: if we are being watched by the extraterrestrials, or whatever you want to call them, space brothers, however you want to say, and if we start into World War III, would they come and stop it? I mean, they've
Yeah.
apparently flying UFOs and things in the 60s and 70s, they would shut down nuclear plants.
Hmm.
So again, I think we're being watched. We always have been, and if it does get maybe to the point of maybe some of these nukes being launched, maybe they won't be launched, if you know what I mean.
I hope so. I really do. You know, one of the things Preston Dennett talked about was that subject as well, and about, you know, a lot of rumors about these false flag attacks from aliens in the future. You're hearing about the Project Bluebeam and the holograms
Yeah.
that they
Yep.
have are supposed to be incredible. You know, and obviously being in 2024, some of the things people are saying, you know, have got to be ours. But then you hear from some of these pilots out there that, you know, this is definitely not ours. This is something else. And, you know, the human body can't handle the stressors that some of these things
Yeah.
are able to do. So I'm 100% with you, Brian. You know, I hope that we have at least a nice amount of things told to us before the both of us are gone. That would be, you know, something incredible. I just wanted to thank you for coming today, you know, for agreeing to do this interview. And, you know, I've been looking forward to it. Like I said, I'm a big fan of you and your wife. And, you know, you know, just tell her hello from me. I know she doesn't want to get on camera. I understand that. Thank you very much. It's been an honor, sir.